everyone. I hope you are all well and safe and working in your classes today. We're going to do some work in Chapter 11, which is Inference to the Best Explanation. We're going to look at explanations and inference and theories and consistency and theories and criteria and telling good theories from bad. That's our set here. So 4 parts, a little shorter than Chapter 10. And we use this kind of stuff all the time. So here we go. On page 375, inference, we already have this as a big word, but here it is as well. Reasoning from a premise or premises about a certain state of affairs to an explanation about a state of affairs. An explanation is also a big word. A statement or statements intended to tell how or why something is or is not the case. Okay. Inference to the best explanation. This is on page 377. It's a form of inductive reasoning. Of course, all these are inductive reasoning, in which we reason from premises about a certain state of affairs to an explanation about the state of affairs. So inference to the best explanation has this format. Okay, so there's phenomenon Q. We talked about this briefly in Chapter 10. But so the thing in question, phenomenon Q. The explanation we have, E, provides the best explanation for Q. Therefore, E is probably true. Remember, we're looking at inductive arguments, and so our answer is not going to be definitively yes or no. It's going to be usually, or this is the way it goes most of the time. And we have to be careful, again, about our samples, whoever we're looking at, that says, okay, best explanation. Okay, make sure that you're qualifying that particular statement enough so that you're not making this broad thing that can't possibly be true all the time. Okay. We have the lore of explanations on page 378, and there's a couple of funnies. Well, funnies. The explanandum is the thing being explained. The explanans is that which does the explaining. Okay, whatever. Teleological explanations try to explain the purpose of something, how it functions, or how it fits into a plan. That's important. Interpretive explanations concern the meanings of terms or states of affairs, its sense or semantic meaning. I misspelled that. Hold on. I have some things to correct. There's a couple things. Always find them in the wrong spot. So, okay, semantic meaning. Basically, this is the dictionary definition. Okay, the interpretive. How it works is the procedural. Okay, trying to explain how something is done or how an action is carried out. And so you have these explanations that are varied according to what we're trying to do. Okay. And the first thing we have to do is make sure our theory is consistent. And that kind of makes sense, right? You want your theory to be able to do what it says it's going to do. So you have to make sure it's consistent. Internal consistency, a theory that is internally consistent, is consistent within itself. Okay. It's free of contradictions. You can't say, well, all cats are carnivores. You can't say all cats are carnivores if you know there's a whole race of them that are vegans. It's not true, but that would be a case. Okay, free of contradictions. On Monday, external consistency is a theory that is externally consistent is consistent with the data it's supposed to explain. It fully accounts for the phenomenon it's supposed to explain. Actually, it answers the question being asked, right? We all have trouble with that sometimes. We get something in our heads that this is the way it goes, and if the question shifts a little bit, we give the wrong answer because that's not what we're being asked to do. Okay, so same thing. Internally consistent, externally consistent, happiness. Theories and criteria, 11.3. The best theory, okay, so there has to be more than one. Best usually means there are at least 3. Okay, good, better, best. Best theory is the eligible theory that meets the criteria of adequacy better than any of its competitors. We're going to get to that in just a second. So we have these competing theories, and sometimes we can weed one or two of them out because they're not consistent within themselves, or they don't really explain the criteria at hand, or the issue at hand. Okay, so once we've weeded out the ones that are inconsistent, we have the consistent bunch, and the best theory of that is the one that meets the criteria of adequacy better than any of its competitors. Now, in the book, he gives us a little table, and when I'm asking you these kinds of questions on the exam, make sure if it says use the criteria of adequacy, that you actually use the criteria of adequacy. Make a little chart, okay? People lose lots of points on that last test because they don't do what they're supposed to do. So, criteria of adequacy, this is on page 371. Testability, fruitfulness, scope, simplicity, and conservatism. Those are our 5 categories that we have to kind of run each theory through to make sure which one's the best one. Okay? So testability is there some way to determine the theory is true? Can we make a test, and when you pass that test, we know it's true? Okay. Fruitfulness, the number of novel or new predictions made. Now, so it already has to be able to explain the issue we're looking at, right? And so which one of them can account for more things than just what we're asking? Okay, that's fruitfulness. Scope, the amount of diverse phenomena explained. Okay, so fruitfulness makes predictions. If we use X, Y will happen. If we use G, Y won't happen. And so we want Y to happen. So there we go. Simplicity, though, scope, though, is how much can we do with this theory? Okay. Germ theory. That's a hot one right now. Germ theory. So what causes one person to be ill and the next person then, in a particular number of days is also ill? What happens with that? And so how many things can we say, oh, well, that's because of germ theory, and what kind of germ? Okay, is it contact? Is it intimate contact? Is it airborne? How do we protect ourselves? Do we just stay 6 feet away, or do we use a mask and stay 6 feet away? That kind of thing. Now, simplicity. Okay, so scope and fruitfulness, the higher the number, the better you are, the better the theory is. Okay. Simplicity goes the other direction. The number of assumptions you would have to make in order for this to be true. And this is where a lot of the paranormal or supernatural kinds of things fall short, because you have to make more assumptions than we're used to in order for those to be true. Doesn't mean that they're not true, but we have to change our mindset quite a bit for that to happen. And when that happens, that particular theory is a little less useful than another one. Conservatism has nothing to do with Republicans. In this case, conservatism is how well it fits with existing knowledge. Remember our definition of background information. All the stuff that we all use to make sense of what's going on around us. Well, okay, how well does this new theory or set of theories, how well does each of them fit that? Okay, do we have to think of something new? Okay, simplicity thing, but conservatism is how well does it fit within existing knowledge? Okay, does it fit within existing knowledge? Those kinds of things. Okay, so our theory appraisal, we're looking at a couple of crucial sentences that kind of wrap from 383 to 384. First, there is no strict formula or protocol for applying the criteria of adequacy. Okay, sometimes it's more important that it be testable. Sometimes it's more important that it fit with our existing knowledge. And so we can kind of rate or rank those 5 things a little bit differently depending upon what we need to know. Okay. Second, despite the lack of formula or theory in theory assessment, the process is far from subjective or arbitrary. We still have to use the criteria of adequacy. It's just which one is the most important, or which one is going to give us the right, is going to separate these theories and give us the one that fits all the pieces. So that's how that works. This last piece cracks me up that this has to be an acronym again. But telling good theories from bad, we use the TEST formula, capital TEST formula. Okay, and so step 1 is to state the theory, that's the T, and check for consistency. Make sure it actually describes what we're asking it to do, and make sure it doesn't contradict itself. Okay, step 2, assess the evidence for the theory. Is there evidence? Does it come from a peer-reviewed journal or 5? Does it come from experts that we trust, or is it, Reddit? Scrutinize alternative theories. Make sure that you haven't left anything out as far as what's a competing theory look like, and then test. The other T at the end of this is test the theories with the criteria of adequacy. And so this is the whole process that we go through in order to test a set of theories and see which one is better, or which one is the best, inference to the best kind of thing. And so we're going to work through those. This one, you've got quite a few practice things to do in the homework and such, but it's still inductive reasoning, chapter 11. So I hope that helps. Don't forget that your reading log still needs to be a whole page. You need to do all the questions, blah, 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 the normal stuff. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have questions. You know how to get a hold of me. You have my email.